Hi everyone, welcome back to History San Diego. I'm George Farrar. Previously on History San Diego, I profiled the explorations of San Diego Bay by explorers Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo and Sebastian Vizcaino, described their encounters with, and profiled the Native Americans of the area, the indigenous people, the Kumeyaay. Now we talk about what happened in 1769. We talk about the conquest of the Kumeyaay by the Spanish Empire through their civil, military, and religious institutions. We think of today as San Diego as people describe as the birthplace of California, where California began. So when the forces of the Spanish Empire converged upon what we know of today as San Diego, converged upon the area by sea and by land. And when they instituted what we would call today the mission system for the Native Americans, we have to look at it from the perspective of what was happening then and why the mission system, why did all of this happen. The Spanish were concerned about the British and the Russian explorers further up in the Pacific Northwest, with the Russians emerging down from Alaska. Ultimately, they would start heading towards Northern California. And they were really looking to keep trade going in the Pacific. And they wanted to build and maintain supply lines for all of this, to be able to essentially stake the claim. Now, who would be staking the claim for the Spanish Empire? The people who lived there. Yes. The idea was going to be that there was going to be a mission system that had been utilized effectively to the south in what we know of today as Mexico. It had initially been run by the Jesuit priests. They were expelled and replaced by Franciscan priests. These were Catholic missions. And they were going to create a mission in San Diego. And they're going to create 8 more missions in what we know of today as California. And there's going to be a man that's going to come along that's going to be a part of this 1769 conquest. He's a rather controversial figure, and he was canonized by Pope Francis in 2015 as a saint. Junipero Serra. Now, when we talk about the church and we talk about all that happened, they're going to form up the mission in July of 1769 upon after having landed by sea and by land. And they will almost immediately be set by problems and issues. And there's always so much that a priest and even the military can handle, because ultimately you need fresh food and you need fresh water throughout not only the expedition, but the settling phase. And the expedition was going to go further up north towards Monterey, and the Monterey we know of as Monterey, California. So there's all this that was going to happen. And the men that arrived on the boats were particularly impacted by scurvy. They weren't getting enough fresh fruit and vegetables, and many people, many sailors on the sea journey, they passed away upon arrival. So there's always going to be this struggle as they went to get this mission system started. And this is going to be a new way of life that's going to radically change the lives of the native people of the Kumeyaay. They were going to lose their land and their ability to determine their own destinies in life. Year by year, they're going to be swept into this new system. It's going to start very, very, very slowly, incredibly slowly. And they will be impacted in varying degrees by their participation, their choice of involvement, and then with varying results. And then, of course, there are the results. They're impacted on the people who didn't. So ultimately, the Spanish government envisioned the Native Americans staking the claim within 10 years, being subjects of the Spanish crown and owning land, basically becoming townspeople or farmers. In the meantime, they vested in these Catholic missionaries, Father Junipero Serra and the people that worked with him, the power to operate the land in trust through the mission, while the military set to secure the land that they had conquered. The need for supplies was dire in the early years of San Diego, so food and water management was top priority. These native people were to be converted to Catholicism, if willing to accept baptism. But under the strict rules of the Franciscans that ran the mission, they were bound to the land of the mission. They were barred from leaving. They were forced to labor without choice. It may be farming, it may be fixing things, it may be cooking, those kinds of things. If they attempted to run or disobey, they were flogged, or there would be another type of corporal punishment, usually administered by the military and by priests. But even Junipero Serra would complain about the practice that was going on, things that were going on. And he filed the complaint up the imperial bureaucracy to no avail. But they did manage to secure rights for Native Americans. But we should remember it was the conquerors who converged to the area in 1769 who would dictate the terms of everyday life. The conquerors who took their land altered their way of life, brought diseases, and in some cases, extreme cases, exacted horrible violence upon them. Rape, theft, injury. So when we look at 1769, we know that the mission is created in 1769, in July 1769. We know that there's an uprising in August of 1769, an uprising by the Native Americans. This uprising does not succeed. In time, the Spanish are able to build up the presidio through stockades and through various things, but it should be remembered that at this point, it's still an incredibly critical time. They didn't just sweep through and say, this is the way it's going to be. What they did do, though, was they built the foundations of what they were going to need and to have to convert to Catholicism. The Native Americans that were willing to convert them to Catholicism, to get essentially claim holders, to get these towns going, to get these settlements started. Because now it was time for the Spanish to utilize the land and the resources that they were claiming. And that will be an incredible struggle. There's going to be continued violence. This is not going to start out as being incredibly successful. There are going to be pleas back to headquarters for supplies. It's going to be a challenge for anyone to survive who was in San Diego, what we know of as San Diego in 1769. And it was not for people that were of weak nature. So I hope that in my discussions with you about what happened, that you understand that what we're dealing with in 1769 are people who are struggling to get a life, a way of life for this new settlement essentially started. And it's going to run up against the cultures and the ways and the plans and the dreams of the people who've lived there as natives all their lives, thousands of years before this empire came in and set up shop. All right. So I want to thank you for watching. I have a lot planned. We're going to talk extensively on what happened in the first decade of settlement of San Diego. So expect to hear a lot more about the mission. I'll talk more specifically about what happened in the 1770s, and we'll talk again and more extensively about Junipero Serra. Take it easy. See you later.